The November 6 Major is already halfway complete. Just this past weekend, we saw the top 4 teams in Europe battling it out to see who would win the online major crown. In a fight between 2 French teams and 2 Russian teams, who emerged on top? I'm Caliber Jacob, and this is the European recap for the November 6 Major. Before we dive in, let's go over the format. Stage 2 of the European League saw 4 teams qualify for November, whose next challenge would then be the Major's double elimination format. If you lose 1 series, you still have a chance, but if you lose 2 series, you're gone. Those 4 teams are Virtus.Pro, Team Empire, Tempra Esports, and the August 6 Major champions in BDS Esport. They're looking to claim their 2nd consecutive major title, while everyone else is trying to knock them off of that pedestal. The first day begins with BDS against Virtus.Pro in the first semi-final, which is perhaps the most tense series of the entire weekend. Both teams were so evenly matched, not only did every map go to overtime, but it required a 3rd map, and even that was tightly contested. Even with BDS almost always banning Villa and Virtus.Pro avoiding Clubhouse, neither team said die at any point despite them not being great maps for either side, and it wasn't until the last possible round of map 3 on Oregon where BDS finally won out. The second semi-final saw Tempra Esports take on Team Empire, the first time Empire had been to a premier event in nearly 9 months, and the first time Tempra had ever made it to a major stage. And the French had a very strong showing on map 1, beating Empire on Villa and looking incredibly coordinated the whole way through. But a glimpse of the old Empire came back after that first map, and they trounced Tempra over the next 2 without giving them any roof to breathe. A 7-2 on Clubhouse and a 7-1 on Oregon was an incredibly dominant win from the Russian machine, and sent Tempra down to the lower bracket. But they would not have a respite. To stay in the major, they'd need to defeat Virtus.Pro on the same day, with the loser being completely eliminated from the tournament. But for Tempra, this match may have been lost in the ban phase. Despite Consulate and Oregon being maps neither team played very frequently, Tempra were clearly less comfortable than Virtus.Pro were, who were also still hot after their game with BDS earlier in that day. Tempra's first time in the spotlight ended without much fanfare, as VP took the series 2-0. Moving into day 2, we saw BDS and Empire face off in the upper bracket, and again, it was not an easy task for either team to pull off, but that's the great thing about the majors. There's always a guarantee that somebody will win. And with a 1-map advantage in the grand finals on the line, this match saw Empire continuing to rekindle that old dominant flame. They took BDS to Coastline, a map no team ever wants to face Empire on, and won. BDS attempted to bounce back with a win on Oregon, but upon moving to their 3rd map, Empire made it seem like they just might have been hiding some of their cafe strategies. Ultimately, they took the map and the series and moved them straight into the grand final. BDS was not out just yet, however. They'd need to play Virtus.Pro one final time to see who would make it to the grand final and to see who would be going home. But this time, BDS seemed to adapt to VP far quicker. They won a max overtime Villa where VP had beaten them just the day prior, then finally broke their overtime streak by again heading to Clubhouse and again prevailing, though this time in 11 rounds as opposed to 14. Virtus.Pro tried valiantly, but were unable to beat the French, and were knocked out on day 2. So then, the stage is set. The Russian machine against the French champions, Empire against BDS, but I don't believe anyone saw this end result coming. Where the previous days seemed like somewhat of an even contest, by comparison, this grand final was a heavy-handed beatdown. BDS were caught in Empire surprise attacks left, right, and center, with almost no recourse or team play that they demonstrated earlier in the weekend. Empire was everywhere and only allowed BDS to win 5 total rounds over 2 maps. It's the quickest grand final victory that Siege's top-flight competition has seen since the introduction of double elimination brackets at the beginning of this year, and the first time Team Empire have won anything substantial since the 6 Raleigh Major in 2019. Congratulations to Team Empire, your November 6 Major European champions. The good news is that this isn't the end of the November Major. There's still 2 more weekends of action left, and we resume this upcoming weekend with the North American Major. I'll be back next week to recap that after it happens, so I guess I'll see you then. Thanks so much for watching.